Bohemian Rhapsody. Today what I want to demonstrate is how I sometimes will use a folded edge on paper to create just a little bit of interest and a bit of a different look. This can be a great solution if the piece of paper that you have left, your wrapping paper, isn't quite large enough. This can be a technique that you use, but it also can be used as a design choice. So I want to demonstrate how I go about getting this look. Now you'll see in the frame here today I have this cutting mat. You do not have to have a cutting mat. You do need a straight edge. A ruler works great. There is a bit of an advantage to having a cutting mat, so I want to demonstrate it with the mat so that you can see what that does. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a piece of paper here today, and you'll see because of the lines on the mat, I can take my straight edge and just line it up along there. The size of your fold may be dictated. If your paper is too small, then it may be dictated by that. If your paper is large enough and you're just making kind of a design choice, then you can basically make your fold as big as you want. So what I'm going to do is these little notches along the side of my mat, I'm not sure if you can get a good look at that, but the little notches along the side, what they allow me to do, because my paper is lined up along this line, I can take my ruler and I can line it up with the same notch on both sides, and then all I do is I take my paper and I run my fingernail basically across there and I get a beautiful straight fold. Then what I do is I take my ruler and I lay it over top and I give it a little push, and you'll see how I get this really nice straight even fold. When I'm using this technique, I always do a double fold. So then what I would do is just do the same thing again, make sure that my first part is lined up, and then I need to make it just large enough that this folded piece will fit in. So as long as I've got it on the same notch on my mat, it should end up being a straight edge. So again, I just kind of run my fingernail across, I fold it down, and then I actually use my ruler to get that nice straight edge, and you can kind of finish it off with your fingers. Then what I would do is take a double-sided tape and I would just run that along. Again, you don't have to have a tape gun. I do, because I do a lot of crafts and these kinds of projects, and you would get a nice beautiful fold that's even all the way. Now if you didn't have a mat, all you would do is you would take your ruler and you would just, with a pencil, you would just mark a line on one side and a line on the other, and then you would use those lines to line up so that you would create a nice straight edge. So you don't need the mat, but it just does make it easier. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to take this fold and I'm going to show you how you can incorporate that into a gift to get a really great look. So in this particular case, I've taken my paper and I've wrapped my box, and you can see that I have a path along the center here that isn't filled in with the paper because I've used that folding technique that I just demonstrated. And so what I've done is wrapped it like a regular present, but you can see there's that gap there. So I've prepared a few materials for this project. So I just want to demonstrate again how you can take kind of a plain basic template, whatever your foundation is, and how just by little changes and little additions you can create many different looks. So I'm not going to do a ton of securing and taping because I want to show you lots of different alternatives. So the first one I'm going to do is I'm going to take and I'm going to show you how this is just a piece of pink cardstock. When I'm using smaller presents, I often will go to scrapbooking paper just because there are so many possibilities. I chose the pink just because it picks up on the pink that's in this beautiful paper. And so for this, all I would do is, if I was using this technique, I would take my double-sided tape and I would secure it all the way around. So this, in fact, would become my ribbon, so to speak. So I would center it nicely on there, and I would end up with a look something like that. I don't want to secure it because I am going to show you some other options. This would act as my ribbon. One thing you could do is just take a button and just set it in the middle to finish that off. I'm going to take that button aside and I'm going to just show you some other options. Another option is to take a circle and mount your button on top. You could take that very same circle and you could actually slide it underneath, just catching that other lip, and mount it on top for a bit of a different look. I'm going to take that circle out. You could do the same thing using a small doily. The other thing that I've done is, if you've seen some of my videos before, you'll know that I love the look of a torn edge. So in this particular case, I've just taken a plain white and I've torn the edge. And again, one of the things I love to do is also create layers. I find that layers really add interest to a present, and I love the roughness of that edge. And the same thing, I could just take that button and set it on top. I could use the circle as I did before. I could set it on top and layer this up. I could use the doily. I can set my doily underneath. It might be tricky to get this under. Oh, I could set it underneath. I could even layer up my circle on top of that. Really, the options are endless. I even have a little felt embellishment that you could attach something extra to the middle if you want. And you can see how just using the same materials but just kind of forming them in different ways, you can make lots of different options. So I have one more thing I wanted to demonstrate, so I'm just going to slide this all off. I wanted just to demonstrate the torn paper look. When it's torn on white, you're just going to get white on white, so there is no contrasting color. But when you use a colored paper, often what will happen is the exterior of the paper is colored, but the interior is white. And so what happens is, as you tear, you actually reveal the white from the center. And that in itself can often create some really cool interest and just a different look because it exposes that white. And it's one of my favorite little tricks for adding just interest to a present or a scrapbooking layout if I'm scrapbooking. And so I just want to show you kind of the difference here. So in this case now, I didn't measure it. I might want that to be a little bit narrower, although I do need to make sure that I'm not going to miss my opening there. Now, if your paper was large enough, if it was not an issue of your paper being small, so if you were using this technique just as a way to decorate your gift and the size of the paper was not an issue, you could actually make your folds meet in the middle and just make them larger. And that way you wouldn't have to worry about the size of the gap when you're covering. In this particular case, my paper was too small, so that gap was going to be there no matter what. So I'm just making this a bit smaller because I want that white to show up. So you can see it just creates a little bit of a different look. So this is with the torn look. I'm just going to pull this one back in. I'll just set it over top so you can see. And this was with the straight. So it does create a little bit more interest having that torn piece revealed. And again, then you could go back and do exactly the same thing. So you could just stack those up. I love the simplicity of this. It's really just paper, so it's really inexpensive to do gifts in this way. If you find, sometimes if you buy a pad of paper, of scrapbooking paper, if you can find a pad at Michael's or one of the other crafting stores, you often can get 40 or 50% off. And if you can get a great discount on a pad of paper that you absolutely love, then all you have to do is go, and sometimes actually the pad will even come with solids as well. But otherwise you can just go and buy some solid paper to go with. And as long as you're looking at small gifts, so it's great for things like technology, things like earbuds and cell phones, and those kinds of gifts are often small enough to be wrapped in a scrapbooking paper. But you could get a whole variety of papers just by purchasing a pad and then some solids to go with. And you can see how really the only embellishment I have here is a button, and otherwise it's just paper. And again, this is something fun that you could add on, but I think it looks awesome without as well. Now, if you wanted to, sometimes I'll put a little string in the middle of there, and if I was doing it in this case, I would definitely use white, and I would just tie it off to finish up that look. So I hope you enjoyed these ideas, and maybe it's something that you might consider doing, just adding that fold in your paper to create an extra layer. And also that torn look is something that's really easy to accomplish that look and inexpensive to do. So thank you for visiting Bohemian Rhapsody today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel for more great gift wrapping tutorials. Also, don't forget to share.